Hi, my name's Deanna and welcome to the very first video for LoveScrapbooking.ca. I'm doing a card today that is using Basic Gray products. I love their products and I'm using their Pyrus 6x6 paper pad. I'm also using the Pyrus stamp set that is What a Pair and the Floral Flurries from the Jovial line. I've already cut my American Crafts cardstock and I'm just distressing it now. And I'm also going to distress this background pattern that I've chosen. I really struggled with this particular pattern. I really wanted to use it, but I wasn't sure how. I was looking at Jill Foster's website, Inspired By, and I saw a card by Sherry Carroll, and I immediately knew exactly what I wanted to do, and this is what came from it. I wanted to show you the stamping technique that I'm going to use in just a few minutes, and I think it's a really cool technique, and I'm not sure how many people do it. I don't have a lot of markers or anything like that, and so I thought I would show you this really neat technique. I'm going to adhere the patterned paper to my cardstock, and then I'm just going to set it aside, and I'm going to get out my solid patterns or solid papers that I've decided to use and ink them up with a bit of antique linen. The papers were quite a good match, but I just wanted to add a bit of depth and interest to them by adding some inking to the edges and a little bit to the center just to kind of tone down the cream a little bit. I didn't want it to be quite as bright as it is, but I didn't really want to distress it too heavily either. I'm going to do pretty much the exact same thing with the blue patterned paper, but only on one corner of it because that's all that's going to be showing on the actual card. And again, I just wanted to give it a bit more depth and get it to match just a tiny bit closer to the colors that are in this gorgeous patterned paper that I absolutely love. So here I am. I'm just inking the edges a tiny bit just to get them a bit darker. And then I'm going to get out my stamps that I'm going to use. The main stamped image that I'm going to use is from the Floral Flurries. It's one of the swirls with the two different flowers on it. I think it's really pretty. But I didn't want it to be a solid image. I wanted to have some different colors in it. So the first time I tried it, I used a paintbrush and I actually just dipped it into the ink pad, and then I started painting onto the flower, and I wanted the flower to be the blue, which is the Ranger Distress ink, and it's Faded Jeans. It matches really nicely with the blue in this collection. In this video, I've actually decided to use Q-tips, which works just as well, and I thought it was just as easy and instead of using the paintbrushes. And so what I've done is I dipped it into the color, and then I'm just rubbing it onto the stamp. And it's really hard to see, even when I was actually painting it on there, it's really hard to see when you're painting it on, but when you see how it stamps, it's a really beautiful, soft, kind of faded look to it. The other two colors of distress ink that I'm using are Rusty Hinge and Peeled Paint. They all match really nicely with this set, so I thought I would use those instead of trying to use any of my markers that I've got. And I don't have a lot of markers that are for stamps. I've only got a few Hero Arts ones that I won at my local scrapbooking store a couple of years ago. So I went over the image really well. I wanted to make sure I covered it quite well, and I went over each area a couple of times just to make sure I had all my ink on there. And right here at the very last second, I'm just breathing on it to sort of reactivate the ink a little bit. And then I'm stamping it where I want it, and you can just barely see that there's color going on there. And when I take the acrylic block off, you'll see that it's just a really nice, soft, muted tone to it. And I thought it really looked nice against the bright patterned paper, which you only really end up seeing a couple of corners of. I'm using some Ancient Page ink. This is their chocolate ink. And this is actually an ink pad that's kind of dry, and I again chose this pad because it would give it a bit of a softer look to it. So I decided to stamp from the Pyrus What a Pair stamp set. This is the With Heartfelt Thanks stamp. And I really liked how soft it was with the inking technique that I chose. I'm going to use my American Crafts This to That adhesive, which I love their adhesives. I even use their foam dots dimensional adhesives a lot. I love that, and you get a lot in the package, and the dot runner adhesive that I'm using goes a long way, so I've been able to use it, and I keep buying the refills for it. I have several of them. And here I am, I'm using the dimensional adhesive because I want it to pop off the page a little bit. And I'm just flipping it over to make sure that I put extra sort of padding where I want to put a very large button. And I wanted to make sure that it didn't sort of sag at all once I put the button on. So I just added an extra little bit where I was going to put the button. And I'm adhering it down. Next I'll pull out this great big giant button. I think it's a gorgeous button. Nice shimmery kind of finish to it. I'm actually going to cut out a section of the video here because I had a thicker portion of the string that I'm using that was going to be right in my bow, and I realized at the last minute that it was going to be in the way, so I cut that out and I just rearranged it so that it was more in the actual buttonholes so that it didn't get in the way of my actual button. I'm just tying a quick little bow and getting it where I want it to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my glossy accents. I really didn't think that I would use glossy accents very much, but I use it a lot. It's a great, great product, and it's very strong and it holds very nicely, especially for something like the twine. I didn't want it to come loose at all, and if I put it in the mail, it might get damaged or pulled apart. So I used the glossy accents on it just to hold it all together and keep it in place. And then I'm also going to use it on the back of my button and just adhere it to my page. And that'll make sure it stays put. It won't go anywhere. Next, what I'm going to do is pull out my rusty hinge again, and I'm going to just ink the sides of the card and just give it a bit of extra depth and interest. And then I'm actually also going to run it sort of the edge, the flat edge of it along the front of the card, just to add a little bit of extra distressing to the paper. I know Basic Gray does a lot of really great distressing to their paper, but I just wanted to add just a tiny bit more to the front of the card, and maybe even just tone down the pattern a tiny bit, not a lot, just a little bit. And there, that is the card. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our video, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.